Hello and welcome, I'm Arumba, thank you for joining me. It is time for another fantastic Europa Universalis 4 patch. This time we're going to be going through a nearly full patch summary. I've gone through like normal and removed some of the items that are just kind of extraneous. The patch notes themselves can be a bit, kind of a bit much to try to read through the entire thing. We're looking at about like 300 lines, maybe 400 lines of changes, so this video may be 20 to 30 minutes long. We're going to go over every item, and I'm going to talk about what I think about them and how it might impact gameplay, and if it's going to make things better, or if I don't think that it's going to make things better. It's possible. But, so, this is the Art of War patch. It's 1.8, starting with line number 5. It is now possible to declare a support rebels war against a country that you're supporting rebels in. This is fantastic, because one of the things that a lot of people have been asking for is more ways to go to war, right? Like, the whole vassal feeding mechanic and just the way that you're kind of forced to expand is something that people were pretty upset about, and we've been asking for different ways to declare war on people, and this is a fantastic way to do it. Now, it is important to know that a little bit further down there is a change to the rebel support percentage, so it's not going to be quite as overpowered as you think. You can't just support rebels with 1% and then have a CB. You have to actually have at least a minimum of 50% support, so we'll talk about that more later. It is now possible to set an allied in war to prioritize sieging a specific province. So I actually don't know if this means that you can actually tell your allies what to do, but I know for sure your vassals can be told what targets to siege. They can be told to be aggressive, defensive, or regular AI. It is now possible to set the military focus for your subjects to be aggressive, supported, or none, which changes which tactics they will use during war. So basically, none is just they're going to function like they currently do. Supportive means they're going to try to attach to your armies, and aggressive means they're going to aggressively pursue like their claims and things that they would want out of the war. You can now mothball fleets, which means they will cost less maintenance but slowly deteriorate in port. I think that's a bit of a misnomer. Slowly deteriorate, I believe, from what I saw in the developer diary, it's about 5% per month. So within a year, they're going to go down to almost no durability. And it's going to take probably a good half year to a year to repair them up to full. But what this will allow you to do is you'll have your trade fleet, you'll have 100% maintenance, so you get the most trade power out of them. And then when you're in peace, you'll have your heavy ships, or even your galleys, mothballed in a safe port that's very unlikely to be sieged. And then when war happens, you unmothball them, and it does take them a few months, maybe 6 months to a year, to get ready to use again, but you're not paying full maintenance for them all the time, which is a big problem, especially if you're playing like Castile or Spain or Portugal or England, and you have this big navy and you need the heavy ships on the open ocean to like have naval power, but you don't want to pay for them. It is now possible to designate your vassal into a march. They will no longer pay tax to you, which who cares, they barely pay any tax anyway, and you cannot annex them. This is the bigger factor. But they will get bonuses in warfare. Now, off the top of my head, I believe that there is a base tax limit on marches. I think they can't be larger than 40 base tax. So this is cool, but by no means are you going to have like one gigantic march with huge bonuses to their force limit. It's more going to be like you have a couple of them, maybe to help you out with war, maybe 2 or 3. But again, the problem is that you cannot annex them. You can reverse the march effect, but I believe it's going to take you like a 1 stability loss to do so. Depending on how long you plan on having a vassal stay as a vassal is probably going to determine when you want to make them a march or not. If you plan on annexing them, then it'd probably be disadvantageous to do that. It is now possible to use your subjects' casus belli or war goals when declaring a war. Again, this kind of goes back to the beginning where we were talking about how people are looking for more ways to declare war and be able to get at war with people that don't border you. And so this is a major change, a very good change, very excited about it. I don't know off the top of my head if your vassals will still fabricate claims or not, but when you vassalize somebody, they usually do have some residual claims from before they were vassalized, and we'll be able to press those claims. And also you can press claims for cores and things. So, pretty interesting. Units with names edited by the player are now tagged as custom named and will take priority when merging. That seems fine. Added client states mechanics, where you can create a new custom vassal, decide their name, flag, and color, and assign them territory as soon as you reach a certain tech level. Unfortunately, as cool as this sounds, this is going to be like the last third of the game. We're talking like year 1700 plus. So if you're like me and you like to start in 1444, you're not going to see the client state mechanic really take a big effect until late in the game, which, again, if you're like me, means that you've probably already blobbed to the point where you can't actually use the mechanic. We'll see. I'm going to lower the volume a little bit on that. It seems just a little bit too loud to me. You can now sell ships to other nations. That's pretty cool. I've been asking for that for quite a while. It's historic, I think. It makes sense. You can either sell your old ships and build new ones, or you can just upgrade your ships directly. Now, obviously, in my opinion, if you can afford to sell your ships, like you don't need them right now, I think it'd be better to sell them and then build new ones, because a little bit further down, we'll see the ability to upgrade all ships if you have the money for it. It is now possible to transfer control of a province to someone you are allied with in a war. This is very substantial, because if you have two people in a war, and let's say you won a province, but the AI sieges it, it used to be that they would never give up control, and you'd basically have to wait for them to peace out separately, and then you'd have to go siege it again. Now, if the AI doesn't have a claim or a core to a province, they have no desire for it, they'll just transfer it directly to the war leader, which 9 times out of 10 is going to be the player. That's very good. You can also transfer control of your own provinces. Like if you siege one of your vassals' cores, then you can transfer control of it to someone else as well. So let's say, for example, you are, I don't know, you're attacking England and you've just released Scotland and they've got 4 more cores left, but they're so weak that they can't actually siege anything themselves. So you go in, you siege it, you transfer control to them, and then because they have control of it, when you negotiate for peace, they're the ones that pay the Diplo points to take those provinces. So you can avoid spending monarch points. And again, I think anytime you can avoid spending any kind of monarch point, it's a good thing. Added peace up, give up claims that forces the enemy to give up all their claims on you. I suppose that's good. Depends on the cost for the war score. I don't know how much that is going to be, but I don't really care. I mean, generally speaking, the enemy having claims or even cores on me doesn't scare me. It doesn't affect things in any way, although it does force them to possibly pick up more aggressive expansion if they have to refabricate. Added peace option war reparations that forces the enemy to pay a fraction of their income to you each month for 10 years. Kind of cool. I'm not sure what the fraction is, but it's kind of cool. Added the possibility to upgrade fleets in one click if you can afford it. Now, you do pay full price, so if you're upgrading like 10 heavies, you're going to have to pay 500 ducats. And this is where I think in combination with selling, if you don't need the ships right now, you're probably better off selling the old ships to an AI, and then using half of that money, or whatever amount you got, to help subsidize the cost of upgrading. Otherwise, you're just paying full price for convenience. Garrisons can now sortie from their fortresses against a besieging force. Now, this has been something in the dev diaries for a while. People have been talking about it. Let's talk about the situation where this mattered. When you fight in you're in a combat, right? And you win, and the enemy gets routed and they have a shattered retreat, they can only retreat to an unoccupied province. If you had one regiment on every single province in an enemy's territory, then they're not able to shattered retreat, and so they stack wipe. So what players were doing is they would just send one army on every single province and force stack wipes. Now you can't do that, because if you say put a 1 stack on a fortress level 2 province, they'll just sortie and kill your army. So that's really the only situation I can think of where this is going to make sense, because I mean, if someone has 5 regiments on your three fortress level province, 3,000 men, it's not going to make any difference. And if you try to use the garrison and then add armies to it, you'll end up taking crossing penalties, and you basically, okay, you start off as the defender when you sortie, but if you support the army, the sortie, with another army, then you lose the defensive position and you become the aggressor. So you're not going to use this. Just trust me, you're not going to use it very much. I don't think it's going to be a big factor. It's kind of cool. It's just basically to prevent human cheese. Added the option to abandon foreign cores for a one-time prestige cost. Okay, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but okay. Added abandon idea group functionality where you can change your country's setup for the future. You do get a slight refund. I think it's like 10%. It's not very much, but you can just abandon an entire idea group. So, I don't know, maybe in the beginning you want colonization, but then after colonization's over, you just abandon it. Could maybe play a factor. I think it's overall, you're losing monarch points to do it, so I don't really think that it's something you're going to do too often. You can now toggle your fleets to let your allies and subjects load armies on them. This is huge. This is just so big. So there's going to be a little checkbox, right? Where you're able to say this fleet can be used for transporting armies. And if that checkbox is used, your armies and allies while you're at war will use those fleets to move troops around automatically. So let's say you're playing a colonial game, you are Castile, and you need to get some armies over to the New World. No longer do you have to go through all the tedious micromanagement of bringing the ships to port, telling the guys to get onto the boats, telling the boats to go and deliver the troops, and then you couldn't even shift click, right? You couldn't tell them to go drop the men off and then come back. You had to wait until they got to the port, drop them off, send the boats back, send more men on, send them over, and it was just a real pain in the butt. Especially if you had to deal with rebels, or if you were dealing just with a major land invasion on multiple islands or multiple continents. Now, you basically just have it's like a land connection to every province. If you have a fleet that's able to transport troops, then you just take an army and then right-click it on a province, and there's going to be a pop-up that'll say, do you want to use automatic fleets to transport this army? And you just say yes. I don't know why it really needs a pop-up. I think it's kind of obvious that, I mean, well, maybe it does need it, but generally, if you're doing that, yeah, you're going to want to use the Navy. And then it will just automatically move the men over for you. And if it takes multiple trips, it'll take multiple trips. So you're going to want to be cautious during war if you don't have naval supremacy, because you could lose your armies, just like before. But if you have naval supremacy, all of that stuff gets automated. Huge quality of life change. Very happy about that. The Holy Roman Empire now have mechanics for internal religious wars, including leagues for Catholics and Protestants that fight over the faith of the empire. So the whole Reformation thing is going to be substantially different. Basically, only a Protestant or a Catholic can be in charge of the Holy Roman Empire now. I don't think we're going to see any more Orthodox or really anything else that can happen. If I remember correctly from the Dev Diary, it's there's some pretty significant changes to the way that this whole Reformation event's going to happen. By and large, my favorite change, implemented a new unit builder, where you can build entire armies or fleets in one click. So you're going to basically have like templates, right? Say 5 infantry, 5 infantry, 2 cavalry, and 5 cannons for like a small little army. And you can just stamp it and say, I want to build that army here. And you specify how many provinces the unit builder is allowed to use. You specify which province you want it to be coordinated into, right? So let's say you click the button, they're all going to rally to that province where you clicked it. And it's also going to automatically organize the construction of the units in the most time-efficient way. So you don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. It's just all going to be automatic. Huge quality of life change, probably the best change of the entire patch. Over 25 flavor events are playing in West Africa, 50 events related to the 30 Years' War. Goody, great. Now those are the paid features. So if you want all that good stuff, you got to buy the expansion, which, you know, if you're watching this video, chances are pretty good you're going to be like me and you're going to get it on release because it's awesome. These are the new features that are free automatically with the patch. The map now has 45% more detail, adding over 900 new provinces, with the vast majority of them making sure the rest of the world is as detailed as Europe. There have been severe optimizations, so the game basically runs the same. They say that every time. I don't trust it. I mean, Paradox, I love you guys, but yeah, maybe. When you add 45% more provinces, or 900 new provinces, I just don't believe it. It's just not likely, but maybe. 3 new trade goods added: silk, dyes, and tropical wood. Seems fine. Added support for compressed save games. I really don't like this because the dumb checkbox on at least Crusader Kings 2 never works properly when you check it off in the options menu to not automatically compress saves, because I just don't like to do that. I have a huge hard drive, there's no reason for it. Then it still compresses them, which takes longer, which is annoying. And I have a feeling it's going to work like that in EU4, and so I just don't like it. That's my personal opinion. But, if you have hard drive issues, I guess it's a good thing. Rebels no longer revolt in individual province. Instead of revolt risk, provinces now have unrest, and each province belongs to a particular rebel faction. When provinces have unrest, that rebel faction will gain progress toward a revolt based on the amount of unrest, and will revolt in one or more consolidated armies upon hitting 100%. This is huge. No longer are you going to have like that 0.5% province that revolts, and you're like, God damn it, what is, seriously, 0.5% chance, and it actually revolted. No, it's gonna work as like a progress bar and you're going to be able to predict when the rebellion's going to be. But I also think that the rebellions are going to be more dangerous, which is fine. I think that rebels right now, or in the previous patch, were just annoying. They're not fun. They're not interesting. They're not challenging. They're just annoying. And so this kind of fixes both problems. They're going to be less annoying and also maybe more of a challenge, which I recognize rebels need to be in the game. I just, I'm glad that they're changing it because it's a mechanic that I hate. It's just something I've never liked. Accepting rebel demands is now always the same as enforcing their demands. So this is kind of interesting because they've backtracked. In the last patch, they wanted you to, like, accept demands. Like, sometimes rebels are going to be serious. You have to accept their demands. You just have to, do lots of harsh treatment and accept their demands. And now they're making it so that there is no accepting demands. It's the same thing as enforcing. So it's either you beat them or they enforce their demands, like become independent or change your religion or do whatever it is that they want to do. So it's kind of a interesting move, in my opinion. Provinces now have local autonomy. Local autonomy reduces the income, manpower, force limits, and trade power provided by a province, so everything, and also lowers the cost of taking that province in a peace deal. Local autonomy is gained on conquest. Local autonomy can be reduced or increased every 30 years, resulting in increased or lowered revolt risk. I like the change, right? I think it's a good move away from just regular revolt risk. And it's also kind of ties in with this overseas province minimum autonomy at 75% instead of the distant overseas penalty. I hate the distant overseas penalty. It's still effectively in the game, but it's at least a little bit different. I still think you're going to see the stupidity of trying to make sure that your capital is connected to provinces in another country, even if you have a continuous connection all the way to it. It's just, I don't like that. I feel like there's been multiple games where I've had to move my capital to, like, the Ottomans area just to have connection to Africa and Asia, which makes no sense. And the penalties go away. But anyway, that's kind of aside from the point. So here's my only complaint about this and what I think might be annoying, right? You know how I am. I'm all about interface and player usability and just how convenient the game is and how enjoyable it is. The fact that you have to increase or lower local autonomy every 30 years, to me, is annoying. If you're conquering lots of provinces, or even just a few provinces, and you have to manually check every damn province and be messing with this local autonomy thing, obviously the only thing you're going to be doing is lowering local autonomy. You're not going to be increasing it. That just seems dumb. So you're just going to have to, every 30 years, click on every province and do this. And I guess maybe it gives you something to do during peace. But I don't know. We'll see. If you're really conquering a lot of land, I think it's going to be an annoying mechanic. But thank God it doesn't take any monarch points. It's just a button. You just click it. I'm really surprised and I'm very happy that they didn't do that. All colonized provinces now have minimum autonomy at 50% unless the owner is a colonial nation or a former colonial nation. All right. So you're still going to see some pretty significant penalties to overseas provinces. Makes sense. It's more about trade. Although local autonomy, I believe it said, does affect trade power, so this is actually kind of a nerf to trade power now, too. The Protestant and Reformed religions now have centers of reformation in certain provinces that convert nearby Catholic provinces to their religion. Centers of reformation are awarded to the country where the religion is founded, and the first two other countries to convert to that faith, and replace the old province events that spread those religious centers of there's no periods in the patch notes for some reason. And replace the old events that spread their religion. Centers of reformation are removed if their province is converted to another faith. So we're going to have more localized religious conversions. We're not going to see just random provinces flipping. It's going to be more like a couple countries accept it, and then provinces around that are going to kind of spread in, I don't know, picture like a spiral or just kind of like a cancer even. They're just going to spread from that province. The College of Cardinal system has been replaced with a system where cardinals are based in provinces and new ones are created once per year in rich Catholic European provinces. Each cardinal gives some papal influence, which can either be spent on special papal actions that grant bonuses and resources to your country, or invested towards becoming the papal controller. Long story short on the change to the College of Cardinals is that Paradox finally acknowledged that the College of Cardinals minigame was boring and not fun. And it was also really, really easy to snowball and never lose control of the cardinal of the what's it called? Never lose papal controller. Once you had enough income, you basically always had enough papal control that you'd never leave it up. There are some very significant bonuses to being Papal Controller. I think with this change, we're going to see a lot more variation in who is the Papal Controller, and then also we just don't have that dumb minigame. The supply and demand pricing system has been replaced with a system where each resource has a base price that can be modified by various major events, such as the Triangle Trade, driving up the price of slaves, and the Great Grand Bank's fisheries lowering the price of fish. This, there's been a lot of people that are like, oh no, you're losing, you're dumbing it down for the casuals, and it's a bad idea to do that, and, where's the complexity? It's not like Victoria 2 anymore. It's, it needs more complexity. That's what makes Paradox games good. I kind of disagree with that whole argument, because it was, did you know, honestly, ask yourself, did you know that the value of trade goods changed over time? Did you have any idea how it was impacted? Did you know that, like, building a port or building the trade buildings would increase demand, which would increase the price? It's like, who cares? None of that stuff mattered. It was so minor of a detail. And the fact is that it cost a lot of processing power to calculate all that crap. And it is possible, maybe, that by reducing the complexity of the trade system, maybe the game will run just as well as it did in the previous patch, because they've simplified a lot of the calculations that the game has to make every month. So I think it's a good change. It's more predictable, and it's fine. Whatever. It also puts in more potential for events and modding. So I think that's cool too. The trade node setup has been severely overhauled with lots of new trade nodes. The most significant change is that the Western European trade node is gone again. So this was that node to the west of Europe where all of the trade would come in from the Caribbean and from the northeast corner of America into the Western European trade node, and then from there it would go out into like London, Bordeaux, or Sevilla. So apparently that's gone. I haven't actually seen the game. Of course, I'm doing the patch notes before the patch is released. So it's interesting. We'll see. I really have no comment on it at this point. Leader assignment has been improved. Leaders that are already assigned will show up in the list of available leaders in other units. Those leaders can be assigned to those units, which will cause them to be removed from their old units. Fantastic. I've always hated having to go and unassign a character. And this also, we'll see. We'll see if they've made it so that you can unassign a leader. Wait, no, you can always unassign a leader, even if he's in enemy territory. You still can't assign leaders in enemy territory, but it just makes the game a little bit more user-friendly. Love that change. Game balance, war. Wars will now only ever change leaders when an overlord joins a subjects war and during league wars. So there is no more, because of their unmatched superiority, they've assumed control of the war. So if you declare war on your rival and they have a friend who's even bigger, they can't just transfer leadership and now you have to fight their allies too. Unless you want to, in which case, when declaring a war, you can now choose which enemy allies you want to call fully in to the war. Allies that are fully called in can call their own allies. Why would you ever want to do that? Well, because I don't know why it's okay. I think it's in peace. We'll talk about it in a second, but I'll mention it now. You have to pay double war score if you don't call them in fully. So if you declare war on one person with the intention of taking land from somebody else, that's fine. It's possible, but it's going to be more costly war score wise to take provinces from them, unless you call them in fully. You have to give them the ability to call in their allies in order to be able to take provinces from them at normal price. Fixed an issue where military access to an enemy's ally wasn't removed while at war. Okay. War exhaustion can now be reduced when below 2. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know if you still pay full price. A common complaint was that you're like, oh, I'm at 1.9 war exhaustion. I'd really just prefer to buy this down so I don't have to wait 19 months, but I can't because you have to have at least 2 war exhaustion, and apparently now you can probably, my guess is, just spend 75 diplomacy points anyway, and you probably pay full price, but you can break it down to 0. Sometimes that 2 revolt risk that you pick up from that little bit of war exhaustion can be very, very significant. Tweaked battle war score to scale to size of alliances involved in the war. I believe this is related to the amount of war score you gain from individual battles. This doesn't affect the 40% cap on war score during war. But I think that, yeah, if you're big wars, then the war score from stack wiping of 4 stack when you've got 300,000 men on either side is going to be much smaller, be my guess. As far as peace goes, you can now always sign peace with world leaders, even if they have become subjects. Aggressive expansion gained from taking provinces, vassalizing, and returning cores is now calculated off of base tax rather than the number of provinces. That's good. It used to be that if you took, like, I don't know, 10 one base tax provinces, it was incredibly aggressive. But if you took one base 10 tax province, it wasn't. Now it's more uniform, which makes sense. Taking things off of an ally that is not fully called into a war now costs double the war score. We just talked about that a second ago. You can no longer get 100% war score from just fully occupying the war leader unless the war leader is alone in the war, or the war has been going on for at least 5 years. Very common example where this would matter was if you could somehow declare a war on a guy, and maybe he only had 1 or 2 provinces, and you go siege him to 100%, you could just piece him out right away and ignore his allies. So now the allies have to at least have a chance to come in and help. And this is very important because they've changed it so that the war leader can't change. So if you are, I don't know, say you declare war on Liege or something. Maybe you're Burgundy and you want to take over Liege, and Liege is allied with France. Then you can't just go in siege Liege and then take the province from them. France has to have a chance to come and fight you over it. And then after 5 years, you would automatically get 100%, is my presumption. Minimum ducats taken from giver in peace deal is no longer restricted by minimum offer from taker. I have no idea what this one means. It makes no sense to me. The grammar is very strange. Any remaining ducats below the minimum offer can be taken and will be added to the peace offer. So something about gold in peace offers is different. Annulled treaties now also removes fleet basing rights, transfer trade power, and giving military access. Huge change, so happy. Nations that lose a war against a coalition target now get kicked out of the coalition, and it is no longer possible to join a coalition against a nation with which you have a truce. So you don't have to fight the coalition over and over and over again. But at the same time, you don't really have quite as many options for gaming the coalition. It used to be that you would declare on the coalition, win the war, and then a couple more people would join. You would declare a war on the new guys, and then you'd get to fight the coalition again. And so you could actually kind of abuse it if you were strong enough. That's changed, but also the coalition should go away quicker if you win. Pretty exciting. The price of selling a province is now on base tax in the interface, 0 to 200 times the base tax. So for example, a 10 base tax province can go up to 2,000 base tax. Interesting. So I guess it's like a slider or something. I don't know. Rebel support price is now 50 to 100 rather than 0 to 100. So this is where we talked about in the beginning. The rebels support Casus Belli. It's not going to be overpowered. You do have to pay quite a bit of money to get that CB. The Coalition CB is now a superiority CB and not a take capital CB. Thank goodness, because coalitions always sucked. They would never actually siege your capital. Not only was the AI abysmal at going for the war goal, but they would just never actually reach the war goal, and it was just kind of silly. You would always get 25% ticking war score in your favor because they wouldn't get the coalition. And let's be honest, if we're talking about coalitions, we're talking about the AI attacking the player. The player is almost never in a coalition unless he's in multiplayer, but 85% of people that play EU4 play this in single player. So 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the AI attacking the player in a coalition. So this is a good nerf, I think. It's going to make it harder. If you have a lot of aggressive expansion, the AI is going to have the ability to come beat you up. Which is okay. I don't mind that mechanic at all. It's fine. Compared to like rebels, it's fine. You can no longer sell provinces outside of coring range to subjects, even if you have a core on it yourself. This is probably closing up some sort of an exploit. I'm not sure exactly what situation, but it's fine. Selling a core province to a colony now makes it a core of that colony. Thank goodness. So I guess if you maybe this is tying in with the trying to build one colonial nation exploit. Can no longer sell provinces outside of coring range to subjects. Yeah, no. I think you can still have one colonial nation. You know, you just sell provinces that you colonize to the AI, and then they'll gain a core on it. That's good. Sending a warning to countries now affects their opinion. Hey, there's actually a negative effect to sending a warning. Good. Means they'll be more likely to join and stay in coalitions against you. You'll still need to have aggressive expansion, right? Aggressive expansion is the trigger that puts people into a coalition, but opinion is what determines when they leave. They need to have like 50 plus opinion, and if you've warned a whole bunch of people, that might prevent them from leaving coalitions. And it also just in general affects alliances and people willing to attack you. No longer possible to block war leader from negotiating for you. They can still only negotiate for occupied territory, however. Interesting. Remove the stability hit when joining aggressive vassal war after peace deal. Hey, it's the Paradox Christmas music. It's cool. You can now use a humiliate peace demand on rivals, which gives you 30 power projection and takes away 30 power projection from them. Cool. I'd like to know what the war score cost is. Insulting a rival that you do not have a truce with will now give you 5 power projection, unless you already have power projection from previous insult. Remember, insulting does give them a CB against you, so you're almost always going to have casus belli against your rivals, but something to be aware of. The insult CB is it's based on battles. It's very easy to get a lot of war score really quickly and then peace out. So maybe we'll see some short duration wars that are just about getting power projection. Could be kind of cool. Lowered power projection bonus for having long-term rivals. Used to be up to 30. Power projection added on full annexation 2. Kind of makes sense. If you completely destroy your rival, that you should get power projection from it. Rivals now properly update, including enemies in the list of possible rivals when a rival is removed. Losing a rival due to a growing too strong compared to them now gives a temporary boost to power projection to help make up for the loss from long-term rival. Considering they lowered the bonus, I don't really know what the number is going to be, but it seems like a good change. That was one minor complaint I'd have. You'd be at like, 55 power projection, and then you lose your rival, and now you're back down to 45. And you're like, well, I beat them. I got stronger. Why would I? Nah. Should now be possible to select rivals after a union break. You can now rival hordes even if the tech group spread difference is more than 50%. Seems fine. Inflation can now also be reduced when below 2. Vassal tax now consistently calculated. Again, don't care because vassals pay you almost nothing. Only Christians can now form personal unions. So we're not going to see the Timurids and the Umayyads joining their thrones together, or Chagatai and whoever. It's going to be only the Christian nations. Non-Christian religions can now form royal marriages with other non-Christian religions, even if they are a different religion. So, for example, Hindu with Sunni, kind of a big change. Going to have the non-Christian nations a little bit more unified. Maybe they'll be more likely to be friends. I don't know if they're still going to have negative opinion penalties for being a different religion, probably, which means they're not likely to royal marriage other countries. But if they have a communal or like a mutual enemy, maybe they'll be more likely to form alliances. Subject countries no longer remain defender of the faith. That's pretty good. It's basically a bug fix. Converting to a religion now has a cooldown of 10 years. This fixes a conversion exploit where you just sacrifice all your prestige to change from, say, I don't know, maybe you have Reformed and you switch back to Catholic and then you immediately switch back to Reformed. The net effect was negative 200 prestige, but you'd also gain that 10% bonus conversion speed for a while, and I think you also got the bonus money again. So that's gone. Each province now only has one type of terrain. Major change. And there's been a lot of people talking in the forums about this, like, hey, again, you're dumbing the game down, you're making it too casual. I think it's good. I personally think it's a good change, because the randomness of it, it's a strategy game. Like, there's enough randomness already. You've already got random dice, you've already got random rulers and random monarch point generation. I don't like random. I like strategy. I like being able to plan and know if it's a good engagement or not. And so now it's not going to be like, oh, 50% mountains, but then the confusing tooltip makes you think it's a 50% chance, even though it's not really. Now it's just always going to be what it is. So if you move into mountains, you know you're moving into mountains. It's going to be like Crusader Kings 2, which is fine. You no longer get river crossing penalties if you have higher maneuver than the defender. Pretty cool. There's a lot of people in the forums who are worried about that maneuver would become an undervalued attribute, but now if you have a very high maneuver character, he'll just completely remove river crossing penalties from your engagements, which is hugely significant. I do wonder what happens when you've got a whole bunch of armies together with multiple leaders. Which leader gets used? Like, could you have, I don't know, let's just say, for example, you have a 20 stack, and you've got one guy who's got really good fire and shock values, but no maneuver, and you've got another guy who has like 6 maneuver. Could you just split the army into 2 stacks of 10, put 1 leader in charge of each, and then have them roll around together? And now you get the bonuses of both? I mean, maybe. That'd be kind of cool. Combat damage from dice rolls is now a linear curve instead of a exponential. Seems fine. Units are now almost completely balanced between tech groups. They just peak at different points in the game. You can no longer recruit units from another tech group from foreign cores. I never did that. Some people are going to complain because that was like the only way that the hordes could keep up with Western or something, but that's just not part of my playstyle. So I don't really know how it's going to affect things. No longer possible to reduce build time to less than 20% of normal. Looting provinces in the Holy Roman Empire now works when you are at war with the Emperor. The reason it didn't work is because you technically had military access with every single prince, so you couldn't loot provinces that you had military access to an adjacent province. So now you'll be able to again, which is good. Although looting itself needs to be more clear. I think you should just be able to loot at any province. That would make everything much simpler. But yeah, who am I? Mercenary pool is now swapping out mercenaries that are obsolete quicker, not waiting until 2 generations behind. If you don't collect trade anywhere else, your trade power and your trade capital grows by up to 10% per merchant active transferring trade, pending your relative trade power in the node that merchant... So pending? Depending, probably. Depending on your relative trade power in the node that the merchant is in. That's good. So that, I mean, if you're just funneling it all to home, you're going to have even more trade power in the capital. Privateers can no longer be sent to trade nodes that has nations you have a truce with where you lost the war if they have a trade power of 20% or larger. Okay. Improved starting merchant positioning. Merchant Republic no longer provides production bonus in countries that transfer trade power to them. Colonial nations no longer get nationalism when conquering territories from other colonial nations. Hopefully they also no longer get nationalism when you sell them a province. Halved the amount of force limit you get from colonial nations. Colonial nations now elect their own leaders, thank goodness. That was a stupid, annoying mechanic. Colonial Assembly now gives plus 5% Liberty Desire instead of minus 5. I always wondered about that event. They'd get this event and they'd say, oh no, you know, they're plotting against us. And you'd be like, but the Liberty Desire went down. Was there supposed to be a follow-up event? But no, apparently the numbers were just reversed, and yeah, that's interesting. It only took like 6 months to fix. Colonial nations no longer get diplomatic relations penalty with parent when the parent enters a separate peace. War exhaustion in homeland now increases Liberty Desire. Awesome. Maybe we'll actually see colonies break free of their overlords. That will be really interesting. You can now, let's say, Spain has tons of colonial nations, and you want to break them free so you can go kill them. Maybe you just siege Spain up and you sit on them until they're at 20 war exhaustion, and maybe that'll break free their subjects. I've always wanted a way to break free that relationship. It's like the only relationship that's not something you can affect, and I hate that. I hate it when you can't pick apart your enemies. The speed of annexation and integration is no longer +1 per month per base tax, but instead progresses towards the total cost of 10 times base tax, down from 15. So it used to be 15 diplomacy points per base tax, now it's just 10, and it's modified by each month progress tick is 1, +1 if it's the same religion, country, +1 if it's the same culture group, country, and plus or minus the diplomatic reputation. So diplomatic reputation has been scaled to 1/5 of what it used to be, but the impact is similar. Hostile core creation now adds to the cost of diplomatic annexation. I hate that. I hate hostile core creation modifiers, but hey, I guess it's got to be in the game. Annexing or integrating another nation diplomatically is no longer a penalty to legitimacy or Republican tradition, but instead -3 diplomatic reputation for 10 years. Not a big nerf, really, to the diplomatic annexation game. You know, if you integrate them all at about the same time, or you just integrate one every 10 years, that's not a big deal. Diplo vassalizing a country will now release that country's subjects. I believe they became your subjects. Now they'll become independent. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because I remember when I played as, like, Byzantium. No, I played as the Ottomans, and if you vassalize Byzantium, Athens becomes your vassals too. So, yeah, I think that they'll become independent. You can no longer Diplo vassalize countries with more than 40 base tax. I don't even know when this was ever really possible. I know Austria had some weird things they could do with diplomatic reputation and taking the right idea groups, and you could get, like, a huge bonus to offering vassalization. So maybe it was possible in an exploity type way to vassalize countries that were huge, but whatever. It's not going to affect 99% of players. Protectorates no longer transfer occupation to Overlord. That's interesting. Breaking protectorate or vassalization now exiles units involved in the involved countries that no longer have access. Supply range is now given by vassals and personal union. Thank goodness. Now your boats won't die while you're trying to travel around to protect them. You'll now get a colonialism CB on provinces adjacent to your subjects. Okay. That's only going to be in the New World, right? It's not going to be in... Yeah, you'll get colonialism in the New World. Only vassals and unions can get 200 relationship improvement cap, no other subjects. So other subjects would pretty much just be protectorates. I mean, I'm not... Or maybe, I guess maybe marches would not be able to have the plus 100. Yeah, you know what? That's probably true. That would make sense. If you had a 100 limit on your marches, then it'd be harder to convert them from a march back to a regular vassal and then go annex them right away. That would make sense. Could be. We'll see. Wow, this is taking a lot longer than I expected. I'm going to need to drink some tea. You just have to bear with me. Oh, man. Westernization rebels now only reduce progress by 10 if they win a siege. Unrest from Westernization is now plus 5 instead of plus 10. So that's a big, big, big nerf to the penalty. Minimum monthly Westernization progress is now 5 per monarch power, up from 1. Awesome. Huge, huge change. Now it's possible to do. It used to be like if you got too big, like 180 income, then it would take you like 90 years or something to Westernize. And it's not going to be the case anymore. Lollards now have a larger support, and accepting them penalizes papal influence. Religious rebels no longer transfer troops to country they rebelled against. Okay. Rebel hunting will now also include subjects' territory. Awesome. No longer possible to support rebels in your subjects. Or perhaps in other countries' subjects as well, I'm not sure. But I don't know why you'd ever want to do it to your own subjects, so I have to assume it's also going to be in enemy subjects. You will now correctly get siege ability bonuses against rebels. There is no longer nationalist or patriot rebels for cultures without a primary tag. Score changes. I mean, who cares about score really, but the revolution target now gets 50% more score. Score impact from won or lost wars is now bigger. Score gain is now higher if rebels are ahead of you, and your score gain is less if you're ahead of your rivals. Enforced clamping on scores from wars. I don't know why Paradox cares so much about score. It almost never has an effect on anything. Enforced religious unity will no longer be disabled in 1650. The Holy Roman Empire will now automatically be dismantled if there is no one eligible to become the emperor. Alright. Reduced the effect of inward perfection and factions, and made the factions more about long-term effects rather than having to switch to bureaucrats to boost stability. You're not going to just change it around all willy-nilly. Federation leader is updated when monarch of leading nation dies, and player is notified with a pop-up. This is if you form a federation as a Native American. I believe you have to have the one of the DLCs to even do that. Negative federal authority capped at negative 100. The triggered modifier Viva la Revolution is now a static modifier instead. Added global unrest effects to the triggered modifiers. Capped relations penalty when losing election to negative 20. Relations penalty from losing election removed when election is won. Okay. Occupying Rome as a Catholic will now penalize papal influence. Removed large tribe penalties, and trade company provinces no longer get penalties for intolerance or non-accepted culture. That's interesting. That's a big buff to trade companies. On to the interface changes. The launcher now has a select all, deselect all, DLC button. Added an alert for costly trade embargoes. Yay! That's so good. I've been asking for that for a while. It's awesome. So if your rivals change and you had embargoed them, you used to have these like stealth bad embargoes. And we've been saying like, hey, we need a bad embargoes icon. Or a bad embargo alert, and that's what it is. Improved the text for too few rivals. Diplomatic notifiers are now shown for 2 months instead of 1. Added an icon and government screen to show that you're the revolution target. Okay. New tooltip for upgradable technology when military power monthly increase is negative. Okay. Added detailed culture info about loss/gain at the culture icon in court view. Possible policies are now seen by hovering over the idea group name instead of the bonus. So you can now actually see the bonus. Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. There were so many potential idea groups and so much information that you couldn't even see the bonus for having the final idea in an idea group. Next, Federation Leader is now displayed correctly in Tooltip when all members have negative federal authority. Date for the next election is now correct and only displayed when statists are in power. Release subject screen text revised to correctly use the terms vassal and subject. Diplomacy view now shows the CB of most relevant countries. Sorting the subjects list no longer defaults the trade power to a corrupt value for protectorates. Union tooltip in diplomacy view now shows the date for when union becomes stable. That's the potential for inheritance, by the way. Vassal tooltip in diplomacy view now shows when vassalage started. Displaying information about army when selecting rival is now displayed correctly when either side has no army. Peace offer view now correctly displays recipient when transferring the trade power of another nation, including when this is offered by the player. When selecting a rival for a slot that has none, the tooltip will now say click to set as rival instead of click to change rival. A little bit of a misleading tooltip there. Vassals and junior partners in a personal union no longer display enemies and no longer allow rivals to be chosen. Interface now says no possible rivals if the nation is a vassal or junior partner in a personal union. Added some more filters to vassal relation actions so they don't show up unnecessarily. Seems fine. Made new wars more apparent when vassalizing in peace deals. Okay. Remove guarantee window now asks you if you want to remove the guarantee and warns that there will be a truce. Fixed some interface issues when vassalization and suggest offers, suggest demands. Man, I need some more tea. This is like 40 minutes already. Okay. Repay all loans button now allows you to repay as many loans as you have ducats for. Fixed interest expense shown as 0 if you have very low values. Total province count is now a delayed tooltip for the base tax in the economy view. So I had actually just complained about this. I'm wondering if Paradox is actually watching some of my videos, because I specifically complained about this, about how you had to go into the ledger to see your province count, and you had to look at some dumb graph, and it was just annoying, and that there should be some way to see your total province count. And lo and behold, if you hover over your base tax, it'll tell you how many provinces you have. That's pretty cool. I'm happy. Removed some map modes, manpower, trade value, and missionary. Some people might be like, whoa, where'd my map modes go? But those were pretty useless. Remade some map modes. We have sphere of influence, economic, added a fort level map mode, added a map mode for local autonomy, and added a simple terrain map mode that colors each province in one color. Interesting. I guess that'll show you the different types of provinces. It'll help you plan out which provinces you want to fight in. Player map mode will now show vassals, protectorates, and colonies. Vassals now have the same color as Overlord in player map mode. Added a ledger page for trade comparison between countries. I'm curious to see the ledger. I like ledger stuff, except for the stupid graphs. Added mercenary count to ledger. Combat interface. 3D models of land units are now shown in the end combat screen. This has been touted as like some big change, and I guarantee some people are going to think I'm being negative. But remember, when I'm critical of things, it's because I care and because I play this game to death. This is a dumb change. This adds nothing. No one cares. It's dumb. It's really, really dumb. It's a waste of resources. Like, why do that? If you wanted to make the combat interface better, maybe you should have taken a look at like Victoria 2 and actually showed some totals and like more relevant numbers. Like, who cares about dumb unit sprites? I think it's silly. Now possible to watch battles the allies fight in a war. That's cool. You'll now get a battle results when targeting ally units in battle. That's cool. We can see the big dumb icons. Missionaries now sort on time in the macro builder, just like in the religion screen. Build buildings alert now opens building tab in macro build. Makes sense. Clicking a unit while in macro build will no longer select the unit and take you out of the macro build interface. Thank you, 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 Paradox. So if you don't know what that means, it used to be you'd like be trying to build buildings, and when you clicked on a province, if there was an army in there, it would select the army. And you'd be like, God damn it, I'm trying to build a building. And now it won't let you do that, which is awesome. Mercenaries in the macro build interface are now green. Macro build interface change culture tooltip now always state that it is a diplomatic power cost. Rebel factions now show up in Outliner. Diplomats working on Annex, Integrate, and Fabricate Claim will now display a percent progress in the Outliner. That's the top right corner, the Outliner. Pretty cool. The Outliner for merchants now show income or transfer value. That's cool. Tooltip for fleet in Outliner now says privateering trade node name. Awesome. Hopefully it also says like protecting trade in. That would be amazing if it said that. If it wasn't just, I mean, privateering is cool, but you know, trading in, it's not quite what I want. What I want is for fleets to automatically join up if they're protecting trade in the same node. But if at the least, if it said the name of the node that they're each protecting in, then you could do it a little bit faster and see when you've got separated fleets. Fabricating claim will now show discovery chance based on capital. That's how it is calculated daily. Province view. Trade goods price now shown on the main province view. Again, you had to like click a button to even see the trade good price. Now you apparently can see it on the main province view. Added truce end date to tooltip for foreign province view. Hovering over terrain in province view now shows defensive bonus and combat width for that terrain type. Pretty cool. Viewing a vassal's province view now shows the conversion and units progress bar. Cool, so we can actually see what our vassals are up to. I like that. Cancel button for conversion and unit progress bar now no longer shows when viewing a vassal's province view. Trade company button no longer shows for non-Western nations in province and trade view. Base war score cost of a province is now in the province interface. See, like Paradox, this is a major change. You should put this at the top. This is so significant. You can now plan the base war score cost of each province that you want and see like, okay, this one's going to be 12%, this one's going to be 4%, this one's going to be 36%, and like know what it's going to cost you to go to war. And also, I saw this in the developer diary, when you hover over the war score icon, it will tell you the total war score of all provinces that the country owns. So you can see before you declare war if you're able to vassalize a country in one war. Huge, awesome, amazing change. Unrest area now shows the icon for potential rebel. Okay. Added ticking war score indicator icon. I don't know what that means, but okay, that's good. Icons are good. War shield war score is now colored accordingly. War shield war score? Okay. Added detailed tooltips to units in war overview. Okay. Fleet basing right messages have been changed to improve to keep the descriptions consistent between each other. Colonization range is no longer mentioned in the messages when a nation accepts requests for fleet basing rights. It used to do that, now it doesn't, and so the tooltip was misleading. Message when turning from a dictatorship to a monarchy on Rule of Death now correctly refers to the new ruler with the new monarch title. Trade mission buttons are now properly grayed out in nodes outside of trade range. Thank you. No longer will you accidentally send your merchant to a node thinking that you can, because the button is letting you, only to find out that when he arrives, he immediately gets sent home. He shouldn't have been able to do that in the first place, and now he can't. Enabled the browse buttons in trade node interface. Added some direct information in trade interface to how much you earn or pull forward from a trade node. Coastlines now have subtle outlines that islands does. Okay. All combat modifiers are now shown in the tooltip for the icon on the on-map combat mini interface. Interesting. I don't know what that means, but it sounds good. Added a line on the movement arrow to show when the unit will arrive. Dharmic missionaries are no longer default to a crane on the map and are replaced with an Asian missionary. Leader stars now count siege and maneuver less, since they are not as important when determining combat odds. Good. So you're not going to see like a 6 maneuver general indicated as a 2-star when he's got 1 fire and 0 shock. Trade node map icon does not display decimals for amounts of money collected to save space. The text box is now slightly larger. On the front end, improved front end display. Okay. Selecting a bookmark will now center map on the first countries listed in the bookmark if no center province exists. Credits window now closes. Added setting to pause on event. That's good. Added mechanic to tell you if a client can handle the current game speed. When you have an army selected, you now see if you could if you cross a river or strait when having the mouse over a neighboring province in terrain map mode. Again, river crossing indicators. Awesome. Huge, awesome change. Loading tooltips, or loading tips updated to accurately reflect changes in Art of War. Added tooltips and loading screen tip for possibility of deleting saves from the start screen. Fixed alignment of radial buttons. Added confirmation dialog when recruiting leaders. Selecting currently selected unit will now close the window. Okay, I don't know what that means, but okay. Truce end date now displayed in the peace deal summary. That's cool. You get to know how long the truce will be based on what you are negotiating. That's pretty good. You can now hold down Alt to select only fleets. This is an interesting thing. In Crusader Kings 2, you have to hold down Alt to select fleets. And they added in the ability to select only fleets in EU4, but they used Control. So apparently it's now Alt. They're trying to make the two games consistent. Improved lots and lots of tooltips. And we're almost to the end. Kind of. How long is this anyway? Oh, it's actually 400. No wonder it's taking so long. Okay, on to the AI. Major optimizations and improvements to military access AI. AI vassals should now make use of fabricated claims. Now more aggressive towards weak countries that hold their cores, much more aggressive against countries that are at war with its allies, will no longer have a penalty to joining wars that have been going on for more than 60 days. That's very interesting. Far more reluctant to ally with nations that are at war unless those nations are already winning or are fighting defensive wars against their rivals. So you can actually secure alliances after a war's been going and potentially pull people in. No longer willing to join an offensive war if it would call them into multiple wars. So a little bit of cheese has been removed. Will now only give claims and cores in war to human. So we're not going to see a country spending all of their war score to release cores and claims to another country unless the player is that country. That's good. The AI is going to be a little bit more selfish. Colonial nation AI will be more likely to turn hostile towards their overlord at high liberty desires. Again, I'm very excited to see if this allows us to break colonial nations free from their overlord. Will no longer accept a peace consisting of things it wants if there's something left out that it wants very badly. Major improvements to the naval invasion AI. Oh, that's awesome. Revolutionary and League Wars now add a big boost to AI war enthusiasm. More priority on sieging the war goal. Good. Will no longer lift sieges so that the war leader can take over, because it doesn't matter. They'll just transfer it to them. Will no longer transfer control of provinces that they don't want for themselves to the war leader. Will now transfer control of provinces that they don't want for themselves to the war leader. Which is good, because if they separate peace, and now they'll actually have less war score. They will be less likely to separate peace, and that's good. And if they do, the siege doesn't disappear, it stays in control of the war leader. More priority on building transport ships. Larger AI nations will now convert as soon as possible to take advantage of Reformation Center. So we'll probably stop seeing such tiny little countries flip. We'll see the bigger countries like Burgundy, maybe like, what are the countries that usually do it? Bohemia, Prussia maybe. I don't know, we'll see. Brandenburg, rather. The AI will no longer abandon missions if the country has been played by puny humans. Austrian AI will no longer colonize. Will now revoke policies with AI will do that resolves to 0, even if the policy cost is also 0. Better at fulfilling requirements for reforming the tribal government. Smarter about when to westernize. Will now build lots of cheap galleys if they have an inland sea capital area strait to defend. So they're going to try to protect that strait like Venice. They're now more inclined to migrate to the same terrain type, and they're now less inclined to migrate to the coasts if not already coastal. Fixed a major inconsistency in AI combat odds calculation that was causing freezes and failures to attack. Fixed a bug where the AI would start a vassalization war, win it, and then end it without vassalizing the target. Fixed a bug in Call to Arms where the Emperor defending the Empire would dishonor despite having positive reasons to join. Fixed a bug that was blocking the AI from adding provinces to the HRE. Fixed numerous bugs that resulted in AI armies being frozen. I noticed this quite often actually, where like if you're fighting a huge war against Russia or France, sometimes you just beat them silly and then they just would stand still. They just completely die. They just would give up. And this apparently is what they fixed. The AI will no longer be upset for not getting provinces in a war that they couldn't be given due to it being a non-isolated capital. Fixed a bug where the AI would fail to attack rebels despite having superior forces, and fixed a bug where the AI would endlessly choose and then lose a country as a rival. Good. Servers can now support up to 256 players to join through Steam if anyone got good enough PC for that. Sounds like a challenge. Anyone want to do a multiplayer match? There are now 10 new achievements. Total control, 100 provinces owned. No autonomy or unrest. Center of attention, own both a Protestant and a Reformed center of Reformation. This revolution was crushed. Control the capital and have greater than 99 war score against revolution target. A Manchurian candidate, start as Jurchen and form Queen. Land of Eastern Jade, colonize Mexico as a Buddhist country. That's a Silk Road, own all Silk provinces. My True Friend, have a rebel faction win in another country. Marshy March, have a march with at least 2 marsh provinces. Shahanshah, form Persia as Tabaristan. Die Please Die, have a monarch with less than 2 in all stats to reach age 80. And the Grand Armada achievement now correctly checks that the player has no loans. Add a new option to the Comet-Sighted event. I don't know if this is just a joke, or we'll see. They've done this every patch. They've added another choice that, again, you just lose 1 stability. Added 12 new events about centers of reformation, 30 new events about war and religious conflict. Rebalanced the Peasants' War for new rebel system. Hopefully it's not stupid anymore, but probably still is. Revolution now triggers more easily for both France and other countries. Nations besides France can now become the revolutionary target through events. Most likely. National ideas. This isn't all of them. I've removed some of the ones that were less important in my mind. But some of the ones that are pretty significant. First off, there's like 20 new countries that have their own idea groups. We're not going to talk about those, but these are the ones that I think are pretty damn important. Spain has land morale tradition boosted to 15%. Huge morale boost to Spain. Keep in mind, France, one of the reasons France is so damn strong is they've got Elan, which is plus 20% morale. 20% morale means you have more morale, but you also inflict 20% more morale damage, which means that France was really strong against their neighbors. So Spain has 15% now, which means that they're going to have a much better chance of fighting off France. They still have a colonist, it's going to rebalance. They also have 5% bonus discipline. So Spain got huge military buffs. Austria now has 25% defensiveness instead of 20. They lost their diplomat annexation cost reduction, but they have 10% land morale, very significant again for the same reasons, and they also now have 3% discipline. The quality finisher idea group is now 5 instead of 7.5, so there's a nerf to the discipline in the quality idea group. Flexible negotiations is now 20% reduced province war score cost. It'll be interesting to see if this stacks with late game, what's the word for it? From administrative tech, it reduces the cost of war score and overextension. Whatever that thing is. It'll be interesting to see if that stacks, if it's multiplicative or additive. Potentially, you could have 95% reduced war score cost. I don't know if that's going to be that way. Probably not. It's probably going to be multiplicative. Marcher Lord's influence idea group is now plus 50% subject force limit contribution, up from 33. Big buff to influence. State propaganda is now minus 20% aggressive expansion impact. Again, a big buff to influence. And influence finisher is now minus 50% on justified demands. Again, big buff to influence. Hey, we're at the very bottom. Awesome. Tweaked policies to be significantly better overall. The policy, the Colonial Settlement Act now gives plus 10 additional settlers per month rather than the negligible 0-1. No longer get policies for having 2 of the same type of idea group, military, diplomatic, etc. So if I'm reading this correctly, that means that we just lost a whole bunch of idea groups, or a whole bunch of policies. But they've been significantly improved, so that's good. We'll see. I don't really know. We'll have to load up the patch as soon as it's available. Brandenburg and Poland are now historically lucky countries. So does that mean somebody else is not? That's very curious to me, or did they just make it so that now instead of having 8, there's 10? Could be interesting. We'll see Brandenburg maybe form Prussia, much more likely, and Poland survive. They've added three new bookmarks. The Nationalism CB is unlocked now at Diplotech 22. Imperialism now just requires Diplotech 22. And the CB for finishing expansion idea group now allows you to attack non-pagan nations in Africa. Something about Japan. And then these ones I'm very happy about. Foreign support rebels modifier is now removed if the rebels die and the envoys travel back. So I'm assuming that means that that rebel support bug will go away. We'll see. I don't know. It used to be that if a country was foreign, they were supporting rebels in your country, and then they ceased to exist, that plus 4% revolt risk would just be there always. I hated it. Fixed bugs with ghost rebel uprisings. Now they will actually rise up and not just show a message. That's a good change. Truce timer progress bar is now working again. And finally, fixed problem with selecting unit types in the production interface. Whew, that was a long set of patch notes. Very, very excited. I'm going to be playing the crap out of this game. I can't wait to start tomorrow. I hope you're as excited as I am, and I hope that going over the patch notes together has helped you out. Thanks for watching, everyone. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.